Alright guys, welcome to episode number 3 of Tardis Talk with myself and Elle, in which we'll be recapping what happened in the latest episode, Under the Lake, which seen the Doctor and Clara encounter ghosts of the crew and ended with the Doctor himself as one of them. So Elle, what did you make of Under the Lake?
I wasn't the biggest fan personally. I'm not really a huge fan of Tory Whitehouse's stories. For all they have really kind of good monsters, the story themselves either don't make that much sense or they're just a bit boring.
I kind of get where you come from. It was really different to what we're seeing. I think we got spoiled in them first 2 episodes, and they're really hardcore for the fan base because we had the Daleks, Davros, everything that all the fans are really big up on. We sort of know the history from it. Where this, I guess really it was more of your classic Doctor Who episode, in the fact that it was more of a standalone story, so anyone could kind of sit down and watch it and work out what's going on along with the Doctor. Whereas the first 2 episodes, like I say, they were more geared towards the fans and kind of having that knowledge of Doctor Who. So it felt more like classic Who than new Who.
I definitely agree. It had that classic element. I don't know. It just it wasn't as tightly knit as that the first 2. And I think the thing is, the first 2 was so good. I really wanted another good episode, so I didn't have high hopes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I was hoping it would carry on the same kind of way and get them big storylines, but I guess in a way you kind of need to come down a little bit from that. It's this is kind of that, but I do like the fact that they've kind of kept the whole 2-part thing, and I think this is going to be something that we see across the series. What do you make of the 2-parters? Do you prefer these to your standalone episodes? Because there's quite a few people that are saying, the 2-parters, they kind of spoil it, having to wait a week in between every single time. And they'd prefer to see them just all kind of wrapped up. So there's a lot of people actually, just kind of casual fans, that are waiting till the second part airs so they can watch both parts together. Do you like the 2 parts, or would you prefer it wrapped up in the same episode?
I actually used to really love it, especially when we had the Matt Smith 2-parters, and it made the events kind of a blockbuster, depending on if it was a good story. We had the Rebel Flesh, which wasn't brilliant, but it was still a really good story. And I think with some I think could benefit from 2-parters, and then some I think could be put into one. Probably this one. I think this one maybe would have benefited. So I think it can work 2 ways depending on how strong the story is. But yeah, I enjoy 2-parters.
Yeah, I think traditionally this kind of episode, it is one that could really have been sort of wrapped up in one. But at the same time, I really like these cliffhangers. I like the fact that we're getting these all this season. Because for me, some of the best parts about Doctor Who is kind of putting together these theories about what's going to happen and predicting it. So in between the sort of week where you're thinking, oh God, I've got another week to wait for the next episode, it gives you something to kind of pass the time, because you can always be thinking about, what is this mystery? How is it going to get solved? And with this episode, what's actually happening to the Doctor? How is he going to get out of this one? So I really like it. I'm preferring these at the minute. I don't know if it'll go like that as the season goes on. Because there'll be a point where something really big's happening and suddenly it ends and you've got to wait till next time. It's no!
Yeah. I just hope they don't always end with a death. I know you pointed it out on Twitter, and I just hope it's not something they rely on for the rest of the 2-parters, because it will get old and it'll be we know he's going to survive or she's going to survive. We just need something a wow moment, maybe an army or something turning up to kill everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if we'd go through with killing everyone. But that kind of death element, it's something that's been in Doctor Who for quite a while now, especially with the Doctor, because we've kind of seen it with David Tennant towards his end of his run, the Doctor's death sort of impending, and everyone's sort of talking about the Oods kind of foreshadowed it, and then the same with Matt and sort of running out of lives, not having any regenerations left. And it's something that's continued over this season with the Doctor supposedly dying, sending out the confession dial. So it is a running theme at the minute. I think it's something that it's probably going to continue. And I think we might touch on sort of death again later on. But at the same time, I think you just said, you kind of need something different for the cliffhangers. It can't be every single week. Yeah. Oh no, the Doctor's going to die again.
I'm really enjoying this dark, deathly tone. Because usually, in the past, we've had a few jolly episodes, which are all good and fun. But I like the nitty gritty where you think, oh God, is anyone actually going to survive? Apart from the main characters, obviously. I kind of like that element, and it kind of makes for a better Doctor Who viewing for me personally.
It does, yeah. It's more of a sort of grown up element. I mean, we do get the comedy stuff in there. I think when we had sort of Matt Smith in there, we got a lot more comedy. with like starting off with like fish fingers and custards and everything like that. But like with Capaldi, it's a bit different because it's going down a bit of a different route when it does come to comedy. What I did love was like the cards that they kind of brought in, just to give him like that human side and show him how to act in social situations.
He's definitely like a social defunct doctor, put it that way.
He is, absolutely. So it kind of fitted in with his doctor and the kind of personality of it. So like that was really cool to see. I think that's probably kind of the comedy that we're going to get throughout this series.
And I think it's probably more of this like midlife crisis I think he's got going on.
Yeah, it is as well. We touched on this last time about when he sort of come in on the tank with like the guitar and everything. These sonic sunglasses, which still haven't been stepped on. So it's a kind of run theme. I think that's what we're kind of going to get used to throughout the season. But I kind of like it. I like the way they're going with it.
I will say that I kind of think it stuck out that the Sonic wasn't in like this episode. Like there was a few moments where I thought, God, it would be really good if like he got the Sonic out just to like mess around like he usually does, like monitoring stuff. And it kind of like the sunglasses I think were only used once if I remember, and it was to say they had like Wi-Fi in them or something.
Well, he did use the sunglasses when he looked at the markings on the inside of the spaceship.
Yeah.
So that kind of made sense to actually use glasses to look at that and wonder why the TARDIS wasn't automatically changing them so you could actually read it. It kind of fitted in there, but at the same time, you missed the screwdriver because when he had like the stasis chamber, you would expect him to have the screwdriver out, scanning it, see what it is. But we didn't get that. Kind of missed it.
Yeah, like especially that sound as well. That sound alone's like iconic to the Doctor, and like he wasn't really like fair enough. Maybe he was just like scanning with the glasses, but how are we to know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is like the big point. You can't always tell when he's using it, and while that could be like a good story element at times, so you don't know what he's doing, other times you kind of miss that because you're so used to it, and it's like you say, the sound itself, that is such an iconic sound.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of covers our thoughts on the episode. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump into kind of this week's talking points because we've got a few questions. The first one, what are the ghosts? Because usually when we see these crop up in Doctor Who, they never actually turn out to be ghosts. But in this situation, the Doctor seemed really, really excited at the fact that maybe this time he'd actually found some real ghosts. He kind of acted like a child.
Well, like he said, it was something like he'd never encountered before because in the past they haven't been ghosts. It's been like Cybermen and things.
Yeah, exactly. So in the past, we've seen things like, we've had the explanations of time-displaced reflections, psychic residue, holograms, the Cybermen invading as an army of ghosts, and then we had the gas monsters, which were they called, the Gelf?
Yeah, the gal.
So we had them come in the episode that's seen Gwen from Torchwood. So that was a really cool one as well. There's been so many times where they've actually come into it, but the best thing about this is, you know, it's something completely different because the Doctor's saying, you know, he's seen all these before and this is something completely different. And at the start of the episode, he was quite convinced.
Yeah, I think, touching on it, I think we're going to get the explanation, like the radio waves are some sort of signal, which was touched on throughout the episode.
I think so, yeah. Like, in terms of like my prediction for it, kind of theory for it, I think the fact that they can touch metal objects, and that was something that the Doctor did notice. What I would say is that maybe these are getting powered by whoever the original pilot was. So he could be using that sort of missing power cell. And what I think is, because these are electronic, if they're electromagnetic, then that allows them to touch their metal objects using electromagnetic force. So it kind of explains why they aren't able to sort of pass through that Faraday cage at the same time.
Yeah, I think like maybe it cancels it out. This is the thing with this episode, and I think it's probably why I have like a massive, well, not a massive reason. I like had a few problems with it. Like we had so many questions, and there wasn't like an awful lot to go on.
It was quite complicated. Like you do get that though at times in Doctor Who, like especially this season, and especially under Stephen Moffat as well. Like the explanations can be quite over the top, and you've got to really follow them and watch them back a few times to get it. And there were things that I kind of struggled with as well. Like I mentioned this to you before, but I didn't quite get the whole explanation of the coordinates and the sort of converting them to be like the space and sword and everything. That didn't really click with me. I mean, it might have clicked with other people. You'll have to let them know in the comments. But to me, I kind of found that to be a little bit far-fetched.
Yeah, it kind of went over my head because I couldn't understand like how they can go from saying the word dark to thinking, well, that obviously means space. And I know, like they said, it was because of the synapses in the brain and things, but it was either a bit too far-fetched or it just slipped completely under my feet. I can't decide which one it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. It's just something that, sometimes you don't have to go like over the top and so advanced and complicated. Like a simple thing to do. And if they just said like these were actually coordinates for that village and it led to the church where they were going to go, that would have been simple enough. You didn't have to go off on all these like crazy things like Orion's belt and stuff.
I think that's like a good example of how this episode may have been a bit better if it was one part, because you would have skipped all that and then they maybe would have gone straight to that village.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, over the two parts, I guess they've got to kind of string it out a little bit. So maybe that's sort of where that comes in. The next kind of question that we've got is one of the crew members called Lun. He was actually trapped by the ghosts, but he didn't actually get attacked. So this wasn't fully explained in the episode itself, although it was alluded to. So he was the only person that didn't actually enter the ship and didn't actually see the writing. So it looks as though, as we're seeing at the start of the episode, the ghosts aren't really too bothered with you as long as you haven't seen that. And kind of my explanation for that is, everyone that has seen it, it gets imprinted in their brain. So when they do die and become what we only sort of see as a ghost at the moment, we don't know what it is, then that kind of becomes a transmitter and it transmits that message out to then have like the pilot picked up. So my thought was, well, the ghosts haven't killed him because you haven't seen that, because it's more beneficial for him to leave him alive until he does go on the ship, see that, and then kill him, because then he'll become an extra transmitter.
Yeah, like I think that was like another thing that like it didn't go out of my head. I got it and I understood. I don't know, like I didn't like it again. Like I know, is it Cass as well? For all that you said she'd seen the sign, and I must have skipped that somehow. The ghost didn't seem to interact with her at all. Like it was only like when she was reading them, and even that was through like a monitor and things.
Yeah, they didn't really like interact with her too much. I don't know, like she was definitely in that spaceship, but she wasn't. I don't think she was one of the people that were actually seeing sort of the imprint on the eye, because we've seen that for a lot of the crew members, but I don't think Cass was one of them.
I think we're probably going to get some sort of payoff with Cass. Well, she's like the boss or the manager of this ship now that the other man studied,
Yeah, I think she'll like play a big part in this still. I like the relationship that she has with Lun as well, like especially when like she thought that he was going to die when he was surrounded by the ghosts, and then when he made it back, like the relationship between them, that seemed like a really lovely moment.
It'd be interesting to see like the dynamic if he was to die, because I know from like the next time trailer, kind of slightly spoilers, it looks like he's going to get cornered again, so maybe he has seen the sign, and it'll be interesting to see if that is related to why they're not killing people.
It is, yeah. Like, so that's going to be like a big part in this next episode. And I think they haven't kind of explained why they didn't attack him. Like, they've just put that there for us to kind of work it out with Cell. But I think that'll be a big part in the next episode. Maybe he'll like be asked to sort of walk to a certain place and do like a certain action, knowing that the ghosts won't hurt him. But at the same time, I think we'll see him get cornered by them, and we'll kind of be left wondering, are they going to attack him this time? Is something different? Was that really the reason? So I think that's something that will get played on in this next episode.
And it's yet again like another theme of mercy, like that we've seen last week.
It is. That's a good point that you bring that up. So it's kind of another running theme that we've got in there.
There definitely seems to be like a few so far throughout the series, so it'll be interesting to see if they too have like a concept of mercy. Absolutely.
And like following on from the Daleks, I think it's kind of cool to see that, and especially that you actually noticed that, because it's something that totally went over my head.
Wouldn't be the first time.
It wouldn't. I won't go into that. So like the next question here is the Doctor really dead? He's like, death's been foreshadowed for so long now. Could he really be dead? Was that really him and his ghost that we're seeing at the end of the episode?
Well, I didn't see his confession dial knocking around, so I'd probably say no.
That's a safe bet now. Unless we see that, we kind of know like he's going to be alright for another day.
It's a good. I hadn't really thought about it until then, so I think that's probably a safe bet to say that he is alive. And well, we have got like another episode, so
absolutely. I think it's a safe bet to say that he is alive. I mean, I think he's probably like, we don't know what happens like in terms of when he's gone back in time and what he's changed, but I think maybe he's controlling, or at least got the same kind of technology as like whatever's controlling these ghosts, to be able to control himself and make his own ghost. And what I kind of see is this giving a message to like Clara and the rest of the crew so it can like maybe mouth some sort of instructions or something to tell Clara what to do, the same way that the other ghosts do. Because from the Next Time trailer, it doesn't look to be the same as the other ghosts. They all seem to be around him, so I think he's like slightly different, maybe on a different wavelength.
Yeah, he seemed to be like off on his own. I know the others were trapped, but like there was a malfunction, so surely they can wander around. But he was on his own.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what I think is, if he sends this ghost, it could like give Clara some instructions on what to do. And what we do have in there at the moment is this stasis chamber. So our next question really is, what's in that chamber? And we'll have a couple of options. We could have the pilot in there, which is what they said throughout the episode. Or what I kind of think is maybe the Doctor's in there, because it gives them sort of a way to get back to the future from the past. So maybe sort of what we're seeing in the past about the dam breaking and all that water coming through, maybe he wasn't able to get back to the TARDIS in time. So he's locked himself in that stasis chamber, and it's a way to get him back to Clara. So maybe his ghost could mouth instructions on how she can actually open that.
I definitely put a bet on it being the Doctor. I think that it's the easy way to get out, like, of his death and things. It just means, like, what happens to the TARDIS is the TARDIS going to be somewhere floating around undersea, like, after the flood comes through and things.
Absolutely. I think, like, the TARDIS could still be there, somehow. So wherever you put that when he went back to the past, maybe that kind of explains why the TARDIS was so unsure about being there in the ghosts. Maybe it wasn't the ghosts at all that it was actually spooked about. Maybe it kind of sensed that it was already there. And because this takes place in like 2100, and this is that the village was from the 1980s, then that's like 120 years that maybe the TARDIS has been sitting there. So if it kind of sensed it was already there and it'd been there for that long unused, maybe it knew something was going to happen to the Doctor, and that was why it was like, you know, we've got to get out here.
I think you've definitely hit the nail on the head. And there has been some talk as well about the TARDIS getting a revamp, so maybe this is like a way to get on with that.
Yeah, it totally could. Like, it all fits in with it. So I think that kind of explains maybe what was up with the TARDIS.
I highly doubt the TARDIS would be scared of ghosts, like it's seen Cybermen, Daleks. I'm sure ghosts wouldn't do too much.
Yeah, my only kind of... I don't know really, because like the stasis chamber, there's only room for one. So my only sort of thinking about this is, if the Doctor's in there, what happened to the other two crew members that went back in the past with him?
That's a good point. Maybe they're still in the TARDIS, and I don't know, actually. It's a really good point. Unless it's going to be really stuffy.
Just bung them all in there.
Yeah.
I think it could be a case that, you know, the Doctor's in there, but it leaves that question open. And we had one of the guys that went back saying, you know, if I die, at least, you know, I'm going to come back and haunt you. So maybe that foreshadowed his death.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. As well, I noticed that we didn't see the death of the first person who turned the captain into a ghost, and then one of the other members. So hopefully we'll get some sort of recognition to like how he's passed.
Yeah, I think so. I think we'll probably meet him in the village, because we're seeing him, well, not that person exactly, but the same species back in another episode that was written by the same writer. So that was in the God Complex. So he was like Gibbous from the planet Tivoli. So I think with it being someone that he's sort of wrote into it, the kind of creatures, we'll sort of get a little bit more explanation and see them in the past. And according to the Doctor, they were friendly anyway, so I'm sure they'd offer up some help as to what was going on in the village at that time.
See, the thing is as well, we never got like a recognition to who the ship belonged to. Maybe it's him, maybe it's this like Kingfisher, I think it's called, that we see a glimpse of in the next time. That's a, like, maybe it's a godsend. Like, I kind of wanted answers, but maybe that'll help wrap things up, and maybe it's going to be the cowardly, I can't remember its name, thing, Gibbous.
Yeah.
Maybe it's his, and maybe that'll be like a revelation that we didn't think was going to come about.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We're seeing this, like, original ghost in there, and we keep getting told about the pilot being in the stasis chamber, but what if that original character, the original ghost that was seen there, was actually the pilot? So it kind of makes sense.
I definitely go with saying the Doctor's inside, though. It's
yeah,
the easy way
I think
out.
so. So that kind of answers most of the questions that we've got in this episode. There wasn't too much to kind of touch on. One other thing, though, that we do want to sort of bring up here is Clara. Because I kind of think that there's something going on with Clara. Maybe she's suffering from like post-traumatic stress syndrome. Because we're never actually seeing sort of how she coped and got over Danny's death. And at the moment, she seems to just want to jump into adventure after adventure. And sort of in between working with the Doctor, we're seeing her sort of interacting with Unit. So maybe that's something that she's been doing quite frequently. And it's something that she's doing to kind of not have to address what's going on in terms of her feelings and what she's feeling with Danny. Maybe she's like throwing herself into work to kind of counteract that. So I think there's something up with her, and that's why she wants to sort of jump into all these adventures and sort of have no regard for our own safety. And I think it's maybe something that the Doctor's realising as well.
Yeah, it's like a really interesting point. Like, I enjoy Clara, but you can definitely tell there's something going on in the background, maybe. I know I predicted that she was Missy last time, or she was some sort of evil incarnation, but I don't know, I've kind of like changed my mind. I think there's definitely something else going on. And we saw like a lot of, not conflict exactly between the Doctor and Clara, but there's definitely a rift there. Like, Clara went for a high five and he just totally dismissed it. And they've kind of changed the roles, and the Doctor says, well, there's only one room for a Doctor. And Clara's taken over that role of like the adventurer, and the Doctor's more like, no, let's take like a back step and like take it steady and just like explore.
Yeah, it's like a total role reversal at the moment. Like, what I kind of read into that with the Doctor was in sort of the first episode of this season, we're seeing Clara actually get shot, and the Doctor was distraught because he thought, Clara's actually died. He wasn't able to save her. And we're seeing the way he sort of acted towards Davros and wanting her to sort of be brought back. So I think maybe he's a little reluctant now to take on all these adventures because he's kind of worried for her safety, knowing that he couldn't save her in that first episode.
I definitely think he's worried, yeah. Another thing I kind of touched on from that Dalek episode, seems as you touched on it, was in the episode when Clara goes into the Dalek and Missy explains to her, like, that's the plan, she's going to be in the Dalek, and she puts the two connectors into her brain, or wherever it is. And so I did like a little bit of research, like as you do. And apparently if she was to like pull it out or whatever, it could damage the tissue in her brain, which is like the lobal area.
Right.
The frontal lobe. And if you do damage that in real life, not just Doctor Who, it's the part of the brain that controls your personality, and it can change like the way you process like risk assessment and things. So you could be like really extreme and radical, and to you that'd be like normal behaviour. So that's maybe like another explanation as to why Clara's a bit more like run and gun.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. It really fits in with the way that she's acting. So maybe there could be something there. Maybe that the sort of Dalek, the sort of needles and things going in, it has really affected her. Do you think there could be anything else happening with Clara?
I kind of think maybe she's dying. I know, like, I touched upon it. I think it was the first episode, and Clara says to the Doctor, I don't know which one of us is dying. So maybe that was her way of hinting to him back then. And maybe she's wanting to do all this adventuring because she's dying of maybe some sort of illness or something. Something like very human and not otherworldly.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, when you mentioned that, I think that's something that really does make sense. That line about, like, which one of us is dying, I think that could end up being a key line. So if it is, like, Clara in the process of dying, something wrong with her, like terminally ill, then it kind of explains why she's sort of got no regard for her own safety if she's willing to risk sort of everything, going on all these adventures, kind of just make the most of the time that she's got. I
also think it'd be something like Doctor Who would put across beautifully. Like, fair enough, you have like soaps and things where like stuff like this happens. I don't know, Doctor Who has like this, when it comes to some sort of serious issues, Doctor Who has this like beautiful way of doing it, and I think that'd be like a really touching moment. Fair enough, we had like the Dr. Donna thing, that wasn't as like serious, I suppose you could say, but they did it really well. And I think if this is the case, I dare say we're going to get some like tearjerkers towards the end.
Absolutely. Like, I don't even know if I'm looking forward to seeing that now, because it could be like really hard to watch. And like, I think the hardest thing for the Doctor would be if it is like a regular disease, like a terminal illness, then it's something he can't go back and change. So it'll be interesting to see like how he deals with that and how he processes it.
I think that was the problem with Clara in, is it Death in Heaven, I think it's called? She points out that the way Danny dies, it's very normal and not something alien, and it's something she can't process after seeing like everything she's seen. Yeah.
So again, it kind of gives that spin on it, and it's kind of the Doctor that's going through everything. So he's kind of, like we've seen already, he's going through the same kind of things that Clara went through last season. So it's another case of kind of a role reversal.
And maybe that's what's on his confession tale. Maybe he knows something's going on.
Maybe. We still don't know. I don't think we'll ever really get an answer to that, but it's something that I'm really interested in to actually know what was on there.
I don't know if I want to know like too soon now because it means someone's going to die.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of them morbid things where we'll just like save that for a while because we don't really want to know if it means someone is going to die because of it.
And it's a shame because we know either way that Clara will be leaving. It just depends if she's going to be leaving alive or dead.
It is. And kind of what that could sort of bring on to is it's not really a talking point from this episode, but we've got a bit of Doctor Who news because we have a new spin-off show announced called Class. So this takes place with one of the classes from Coal Hill School where Clara actually works as a teacher. But the writer has actually come out and said that he's confirmed there'll be no Clara in the actual show. So she was kind of a front runner. I thought she'd be kind of taking on like that Sarah Jane sort of role and guiding the class. But her now being confirmed not to be in it, that's a big thing for me because not only do I not know who is going to be in terms of a sort of leader for the children, then it makes me wonder what happens to Clara if she's no longer at that school.
Yeah, it's like a really funny thing because literally the night before it was announced, we spoke about like maybe Clara's going to take over the Sarah Jane thing because she sadly passed away. So like that's somewhere we can't really explore again. And this, it opened like a new generation. Maybe Clara would come in and be like the Sarah Jane, but obviously that's not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. And Clara does have that kind of Sarah Jane look. I think she's someone that would really fit in well in that kind of role, looking after the children, sort of guiding them through it. And the way that she's acted this season, where even in this episode, like you've mentioned it, about her sort of becoming the Doctor, and the Doctor even saying, you know, the Tardis is big as it is, there's only room for one Doctor. So I could like totally see her being our own kind of Doctor in this spin-off show and leading the children against all these alien threats. So it's a shame that she's not going to be in it.
I think it's definitely going to happen sooner or later because, well, she had the calling cards as well. And I kind of thought maybe that was her preparing the Doctor for her no longer being around, and maybe he just didn't think anything of it. But I know you had like a different take on the calling cards.
Well, absolutely. I think what you've just said there, it could like get him into that process of, you know, thinking that way without Clara around. So it kind of explains that. I thought maybe the Doctor going into the past, I don't know where these cards are, if they're sort of still in that control room, then maybe you could leave an extra card there in the past and that'll give Clara a message in the future.
It'd definitely be an idea. It's not something like The Stranger too.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I think is like if Clara's got the cards on her, then it doesn't really make too much sense because they wouldn't be able to change them. But if the Doctor's got them in the past, he could always leave one of them cards lying around. So I think that's a good way that could also sort of pass a message to the future.
I definitely think we're going to get some timey-wimey that doesn't quite make sense, but we'll just have to happily go along with.
Absolutely. But I think the most funny is just sort of contemplating on what we think could happen. Because like I said, when we talk about the two-parters, it's always the best part. And I can't wait for next week's episode just to see how they resolve all this.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. I think the character design for the Kingfisher, it looks phenomenal. It kind of reminds me of the Botham Resident Evil phone. It's like kind of like the spitting image.
It is.
And and the cinematography and things from the next episode looks amazing. Like when the flood's coming over, it just looks amazing. So it'll be interesting to see like if it holds up. Maybe it'll be better, and once things are explained, maybe I'll appreciate the first episode more. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it'll definitely have that feeling. Once you get everything explained, it kind of all makes sense, and then I think you'll probably enjoy it much better, especially if you want to rewatch the two episodes sort of as one.
Yeah.
So one other thing that you actually noticed was at the start of the episode when they go into the canteen, there's actually a big painting on the wall. So that kind of shows sort of a big serpent type monster. What did you make of that?
It kind of like made a moment, like it definitely focused on it, and it wasn't just like a one-shot thing. It went back to it a few times, and it was something that kind of stood out of place from like the rest of the environment. So, and then once you get a close-up of it, it kind of looks like the Kingfisher from the next episode.
It does, like the head of it especially, it does resemble what we're seeing in the next time trailer. So I think it could sort of be a sign of things to come, or things that have already passed, I guess. And the serpent-like thing, being in Scotland, what I thought was maybe it could be sort of a nod to the Loch Ness Monster, but it is quite a way away from Loch Ness. So, I don't know, maybe we could see the monster itself turn into some kind of serpent and sort of meet up with them again in the future.
Well, you see it with legs in the next episode. Maybe it like gets up on its feet and goes on to like the loch
Yeah. So it could be. We've seen like other things sort of transform. We've seen like Colony Soft become like a load of different snakes and one main one, as opposed to like one sort of human type being. So it's not something that we could really rule out. I think changing is a big possibility.
Yeah, maybe that whole poster thing or mural, whatever the hell it was on the wall, maybe that's depicting the past. And if you look on the picture, there's like a boat. To me, it looked like a Viking ship, which kind of didn't match in with what like the people on the boat were wearing. So maybe that's the Doctor and the other two on the boat, and maybe they're going to like ride the wave out.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, maybe this ship isn't belonging to that actual alien. Maybe it's the original one that we've seen in the past episodes. So maybe that sort of being the serpent-like looking thing, maybe that was already there in the first place.
I definitely can't wait to see what it is, and I definitely think that mural or whatever has something to do with the Kingfisher and what we're going to see next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a great spot. So I guess that brings us to the end of this episode, but let us know your thoughts on the episode itself and all the talking points that we've discussed, including your theories. So we want to know, what are the ghosts? Is the Doctor really dead? What's in the stasis chamber? And what are your thoughts on the newly announced spin-off show Class? So let us know your thoughts in the comments, or you can get in touch with us via Twitter. So you can tweet me at Smack Network.
And you can tweet me at Revolution, which is REVELLEUTION.
Cool. So make sure and let us know what you think. We look forward to hearing your thoughts. And until next time.
See you later.